welcome to our presentation of our article titled Mapping Terrorism in the Academic Landscape of the Business Field, a bibliometric study of the past 30 years. The article has been accepted by the International Journal of Conflict Management. I am Maria Klona, the lead author of the article. We work together with Dr. Jane Menzies and Associate Professor Ambika Zutshi in Deakin University. I've been motivated to work on this article by an overall research interest on disruptive business events, but mostly by the frequency terrorism appears through the everyday media. Terrorism is defined by the Global Terrorism Database as an action outside a legitimate warfare activity with intention to intimidate a larger group than the immediate victims, and it has political, social, religious, or economic goals. Terrorism is only one of the human-made disasters, and in literature we observe studies on technological disasters, chemical disasters, wars, whether this is civil wars or transnational, economic disasters, and pandemics. I'm going now to pass the presentation on to my colleague, Jane.
Thank you, Maria. So the findings of our study, which was a bibliometric review, revealed that there was approximately 3,500 articles that were written in the terrorism field over the last 30 years, so from 1990 to 2020. And our results revealed that there was a steady increase in those articles over the last 3 years. In our bibliometric review, we did a cluster analysis, and that revealed that terrorism had an impact on a range of different areas. And these were the different clusters that our research found. So for instance, our research found that terrorism had an impact on economic growth. So for instance, while at the start, an economy might grow as they rebuild, in the long term, it's found that macroeconomic growth can be affected by terrorism. Similarly, foreign direct investment would be affected as multinationals would be more conservative and worried about investing in foreign countries that have terrorist activity occurring. Similarly, tourism would also be affected because people would be less willing to want to travel to destinations that have terrorist activity in it. Similarly, stock market reforms would also be affected, or stock markets. Basically what would happen is that the stock market would decrease in value as assets decrease in value and investor confidence decreases. Similarly, the security of MNCs would also be affected by them operating in countries that have terrorist activity. And finally, we also found in our cluster analysis that terrorist activity had an impact where there were high levels of political instability. So it was actually greater for countries that had higher levels of political instability than countries that have lower. Okay, so in terms of other findings of our bibliometric review was that the USA and Harvard University was top on the list for the most productive country in terms of research that is on this area. And similarly, Harvard Institution was the top institution for these studies. The top authors in this field include A. Abadi and also J. Gardizabal, and similarly the top universities were Harvard University, as I've already said, and also the University of Basque Country in Spain. When we did our keyword analysis, we found that our first cluster was on terrorism related to tourism, economic issues, FDI, foreign aid, conflict, crisis, political instability, and the 9/11, so the September 11 attacks. So it's kind of similar to what I just talked about on the previous slide. Our second cluster for the keyword analysis refers to security, crime, and risk management. And the final third cluster related to the global nature of terrorism and money laundering. So all in all, that was our major findings from this study. So I will hand over to Ambika for her discussion of future research.
Thank you very much, Jane. So as already indicated by Jane, the bibliometric analysis highlighted a number of avenues for research, for future research, which we poise should be starting in the policy area, because that will have a direct impact on different government bodies' decision-making. These top policy level changes have a flow-on effect on business operations, and in turn on us as current and potential customers of any business. The first theme, and you can see the details of the future research directions in table 4 of the paper. The first theme is that of the impact of terrorism on economic growth. And one of the key areas that require further attention is how to quantify the impact of terrorism. While direct impact of loss of dollars, financial transactions can be easily calculated, it is the non-visible cost that we miss. So these costs include loss of life, relationships, and eroding of trust between stakeholders, loss even of the ecological environment due to terrorist attack, depending on, of course, the type of the attacks. These costs can lead to, for example, the third theme impact area, which is mentioned in table 4, the tourism. People will avoid traveling to destinations if they feel unsafe due to potential unrest, even if there have not been any attacks in the recent past. With the changing demographics and more females and younger people traveling alone, the perception of safety is paramount. Another impact of terrorism is that we would mention here is the impact on multinationals, but also other businesses, especially due to supply chain disruptions. And as a tangent example, and as Maria touched right at the start, COVID-19 pandemic has reminded all businesses, irrespective of their size and the sector, and governments of the importance of having connected and flowing supply chains. So to sum up and to thank you on behalf of the team, Maria, Jane, and myself, thank you for listening to us. We are very excited writing this paper, and we hope you find this informative and engaging. Please feel free to contact any one of us if you have any questions with respect to the paper. Thank you and keep well.